Welcome to Fellowship Bible Church Sermon Spotlight, where we take a deeper dive into the sermon each week, sharpening our minds with truth and encouraging one another in our daily Christian walk, all through the joys of conversation. I'm Caleb Pearson. Joining me in the host spotlight today, Miss Abby Linaburg. Abby, how are you?
Good.
Good. Slightly new intro. I read it. I liked it. Felt very weird coming out of my mouth, but we did it. He's also joining us, was in the pulpit this weekend. You might have seen him waltzing around somewhere, Follow the Star weekend. Mark Carey. Mark, how are you?
Fine. Yep.
Good. And Follow the Star, you did get to walk around, talk with people?
Yep.
Right? Okay, sweet.
Inside, outside,
It's awesome.
every which way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did you go through with Gabe?
I didn't. Yeah. Jeremy was here. We only have one car right now. So it was like if we were here, we were going to be here the whole time.
Yeah.
I didn't think Gabe could handle
And
that,
Jeremy did some video, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was fun. I did parking. It was a blast. I love doing it. I have my own little lot.
How creative. I mean, every team, kitchen team, I wanted to make sure I get that in for the kitchen folks, but the, but the parking team, I mean, we talk about getting it down to a science and just the communication. And then the security team, just amazing, the behind the scenes stuff. And, all the volunteers and everything that went into it is such a good spirit and a good way to kind of start the season. And
Yeah.
the comments from people. And, if it would have been a day earlier on Friday or a day later, even on Monday night, it would have been more miserable.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it was just really nice.
Yeah.
Wasn't windy at all, by the way.
Oh, it was just nice.
yeah.
And if it, can you imagine doing this down in Tampa, Florida, or San Diego in the warm? And I mean, you want that chill in the air.
Yeah. Imagine doing it in Nazareth. You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, it was exciting. Over 5,000 people, I'm sure, not sure the exact number, but exciting times. And if anybody has stories or interactions you had Follow the Star weekend, let us know for sure. Let somebody on staff or a pastor know. We'd love to capture those stories. But ultimately, we're here to kind of jump into a Sunday and review the sermon a little bit. So, Mark, I'd love to come your way first, talk about maybe cutting room floor stuff or where you went this weekend. Follow the Star, Christmas season, but at the same time, we're going through the Gospel Mark. So what is it about chapter 10 and even where we ended that seems to be key narratively?
Well, Follow the Star. We have the marketplace. We have the people, the nativity scene or the wise men scene, the people in character. And what would it have really been like in that first century for the Jewish people? The anticipation or the need or the deep desire that they had, the longing that they had. And I think it's brought out a little bit in this passage with in the opening verses there of verse 32. And I brought it out just a little bit where Mark talks about they're on the road going up to Jerusalem. And Jesus already said he's going there to die, but that's always lost on the disciples. But it was this idea, this mixture. They were amazed, and those who followed were fearful. And we don't know for sure. There's obviously this crowd. There's the 12 disciples, but there's maybe hundreds more. And it says, and they were amazed, and those who followed were afraid, were fearful. And so you put yourself back there, and there's a historical context here behind these words. And it's helpful, I think, to understand the historical context of the longing and the anticipation and the need, and then the sense of hopefulness that this one is the Messiah. And I think there's many people who are believing that this was true. But what's going to happen in Jerusalem? Because that's where it's all going to take place, even according to the Old Testament prophets. This is the Messiah. There's Romans there, and there are religious leaders that everyone would have known was anti-Jesus and were wanting to put him to death. So with that background, that fear with amazement, it put James and John's request in a kind of a unique light. We want you do for us whatever we ask. And, where were the disciples thinking? And why were they thinking what they were thinking? Why did James and John jump to that question? Jesus has obviously been teaching them about the kingdom and the coming kingdom. Behold, the kingdom is at hand, and all these things. All of that anticipation and hope and excitement, and these guys just blurted out the most crazy, self-centered.
Especially the way Mark writes it, like the way it's put right here. It's like, ooh,
yeah. And he doesn't mention the mother, which maybe Mark is a shorter. He's condensing things. Probably didn't have to, or maybe he was just being respectful. But we know from the other gospel accounts that it was the mom that came and said these things or prompted this. But
how embarrassing.
yeah. It's your typical mom who wants little Jamie and Johnny to get those positions and make sure they do, because my boy is better than your boy, kind of thing. But anyway, that whole context, I in studying this passage, it intrigued me, but it also was fun to think about what is all going on here as they're approaching Jerusalem, and the thoughts, the anticipation, the hope, and the fear of it all kind of mingling together. And maybe it makes James and John's pride and self-centeredness stick out all the more.
Well, you grow up studying this stuff too, and I remember thinking often, why are the disciples so dumb? It's so easy to read it and be like, come on, guys. Obviously, we're like them. It's easy to read it with some sort of God complex. I'd never do that. But they're not just learning; they also have to unlearn. Yeah. Like they're steeped in this Jewishness, the anticipation of rule and kingdom and all this stuff. So when Jesus is against it, it's not just learning who Jesus is; it's unlearning where you've been wrong, and so we can see them stumble through that. And that's humbling in a way. I mean, I was going to ask you, Abby, what stood out this weekend, this passage, the follow the star story, all of it's kind of coming to a head.
Yeah. The fear of the crowd did stand out to me. I found myself wondering, like, if you're afraid, why are you following? And what are you afraid of? What are you? And if it's Jesus that you're afraid of, why are you following? Or if you think this is the kingdom coming and it's going to be a battle, what are you going to do there? So I had those kind of questions running through my mind. But ultimately I felt like the service and tying that into Follow the Star was really impactful too. Just in this season, I think we think about giving and we think about all the fun and the celebration, but it's like, how can we see a need? Not just, oh, I need to Christmas shop. What's a real need?
Yeah. How do we serve?
See it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I just visited a friend of mine in the hospital, and chaplain came in and prayed, and it was just so interesting to see, like you're talking about, a need, and how an environment like that can become God focused, and everybody in the room ready to rally around something like that. It's just, there's a message worth hearing all the time. It's worth hearing, and so I appreciated, to your point, of just how well orchestrated Follow the Star was, and I'm in this far parking lot, and so even when I'm not parking cars, I'm directing them away from my lot, and I kind of got to watch. I had a 180-degree view of the whole thing, and to see all the moving parts. I couldn't even see the scenes because they're on the other side of the building, but I saw all the moving parts making that happen, and it's really hard to leave something like that and not have an appreciation for the body of Christ, and for that many people being united around this message, this story. This is what matters. And over the next 3 weeks, Christian families are going to be doing that, trying to remind their kids what matters. What is this really about?
Yeah.
And my sons too. And there's already conversations. There is a Jesus, and there is a Santa, and there is a this and a gift. And how are we going to rectify all that? And what ultimately matters? And the more we can have conversations like this, and from my perspective, see how something we've planned so far in advance to teach fits into that is so cool to me.
Yeah. The attitude of not just James and John, it's of the rest of the 10 were indignant with them for getting probably to the front of the class and asking those questions. And it speaks to the challenges within our heart, our human heart, to want to make sure something's being given to us. That am I being served well? It's almost like that's a default thinking of the flesh.
Mm-hmm.
And so when Jesus says, "But it's not this way among you," well, it was, because they just experienced it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what was Jesus getting at? It should not be this way. He said, "But it's not this way among you." And it's like, it's like Jesus is talking about identity, truth. I mean, it's like, this is not you,
right?
Because you're following me. You're a Christ follower. So this is not the way that you should operate, or this is not the way we operate. This is not the way it is among you.
And think about the context of that. Jesus identifies himself the way, the truth, and the life, and here he is talking to them, and they're missing it.
Yeah. But going back to your point, you can understand the deconstructing that had to happen in their thinking, because that's why the Apostle Paul used the word mystery when he talked about the church age. And if you're not a dispensationalist, then you probably don't understand what we're going to say in the next few moments. But there is a in God's divine plan, he knew there was going to be
specific church age,
a different time period that was going to postpone everything that the prophets had talked about, because they could not fathom a dead Messiah, a crucified. And Jesus gets so specific in this passage. They're going to spit on, he's going to be handed over to the Romans, to the Gentiles. I mean, where did that come from? Where is that in Isaiah? Well, it might be something in there, but it's passed over, and he's going to be spit upon and mocked and scourged, and then they're going to kill him. And it's just, if those words were heard, or, I mean, he said it over in chapter 8, and Peter said, no, he rebuked him. So it's just so not the typical thinking of the day, because they could not envision a postponement to the kingdom. They could not, he's here. Yeah. There you are. He's the Messiah. They knew that. They're going up to Jerusalem. It's all going to happen. And in Luke chapter 19, verse 11, I alluded to that in my message. It says, for they were supposing that the kingdom was going to happen immediately.
Right.
So that was the thinking. And it's perfectly understandable why they would think that way.
Yeah.
Especially some of them coming down from the transfiguration.
That's right. Oh, yeah.
But what a
curveball.
Yeah. That is.
Yeah. So when he said the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and give his life, and then he used that word ransom. Lutron is, I think, the Greek word, but the payment of a price, the ransom. You would think that would have brought shivers up and down their spine. Payment of a ransom price. Why a ransom? We're not
for what?
For what? You going to pay the Romans? Are you going to pay Caesar something to set us free? And who needs the ransom paid? Well, in a sense, God does. He required a payment, and Jesus became the payment. How all that was being processed in the minds of these men, it was hard to believe. And as we get to the end of Mark's gospel in a couple of months, we will see in chapter 16, verse 8, I think it is, they were still fearful because they couldn't believe that the Messiah had was resurrected. I mean, it's just, and yet these are the people God chose, that Jesus chose.
Yeah.
And they're not the point of the gospel either, because you can finish the gospel Mark and be hard pressed to be like, thanks for nothing, Mark. You ended your book. You ended your book too early.
Yeah.
These dummies don't get it.
If that, we'll talk about
about
the end of Mark's. There's a question mark about the authenticity of those final verses,
but it's just so cool that they aren't the point of the book. The mighty Messiah, suffering servant. You get to see their firsthand first degree wrestle with who Jesus is. He's right in front of their face. Right. How are we doing that? How are we doing in our wrestle with who Jesus is? Because we have one.
And we know the end of the story, as did Mark's readers. So we're reading a book that believers are on the other side of the resurrection. Mark is telling this past story, and maybe some of them are sitting thinking the same thing. Well, that's stupid, James and John. Why would they do that? Well, chances are you would have done that too if you were in the. But
it was unprecedented.
yeah, yeah. But now we're on the other side of it, as the Roman believers were. He is alive, and God, and he is the mighty Messiah who was the suffering servant who came and gave his life a ransom. Now go serve somebody, because it's the Gentile way is not the way among us. It's a very straightforward passage in so many ways.
And it shows that you can love Jesus a lot, but be self-serving.
Yeah,
They're with him. They're pals, buddies, but they're asking about themselves.
Yeah.
And so the encouragement is going to be serve others.
Yeah.
And they're probably just interested in serving Jesus and having him serve them. No, I'll serve you, you serve me. What do other people have to do with it?
Yeah.
And as we arrive at all the Gospels, really arrive at that Great Commission and what he's doing.
And Jesus, by what he said there in verse 43, 42 through 45, is showing how counterintuitive Christ followers, our direction is and should be compared to the world's way of thinking. It should stand out. And that's another question that we could have talked about in the sermon is it? What are ways that Christ followers should stand out to the world in general? Well, he just told us here. It's the thing about whoever wishes to become great among you shall be your servant. Whoever wishes to be first among you shall be slave of all. What was 60% of the Roman Empire was made of slaves? I think I'm recalling those statistics to mind, but I think that like 60%, 6 out of 10 people in the Roman Empire were slaves. And you didn't want to be a slave. It was no fun to work on a galley ship and, be a rower. But that was so much a part of, and so Jesus uses these words. If you really want to be great, you got to be a slave. It's like, what? We're fighting for our freedom. We're think of Simon the Zealot, who was one of his disciples, who, was on that side of maybe plotting against Rome at one point, and hearing these words, or, what would that have done in their thinking? And well, what should it do in our thinking? What does that look like to be a slave through all? It's so we live in a culture that hates slavery. I mean, we despise any part of that, and certainly in American culture where we're free and we value our liberty, and don't tread on me, and whether it's mandates of any kind that are placed upon us, we chafe against that. And here Jesus is saying, find someone to go be a slave to them, be a servant of all. So, again, counterintuitive to the way mankind is wired. So, again, what did that do for the disciples to hear that? What does it do to us in our day and age? And how do we really apply this? That's always a challenge in a sermon, and you got limited time and you want to explain the passage, but how do you help people practically think that through? And at some point, and this last weekend, it's just saying, ask the Holy Spirit, and when you sense that spiritual tap on your shoulders, and it, then be obedient to it, because it's just a matter of look around. Here's the passage. This is what Jesus said. Be like him. He came to be a slave. Now, go figure it out.
Well, and doesn't that seem like a small thing to ask when he just died so brutally? Like, comparatively, he's like, I'm doing this, so I'm asking you to now do this. And you compare the two, and it's like, oh, I should be able to do that.
Yeah. Jesus dies for somebody, but I can look at him. I don't even want to deal with him.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
a perspective issue that is. And to your point of this, like, I love the application of follow the Spirit. Can't say it every week as your only application, because then it's like, all right,
Yeah,
pastor,
yeah.
thanks, cop out, pastor.
Yeah,
Thanks for
right.
not giving us anything. But it's just as dangerous to never say something like that.
Right.
We need to be led by the Spirit, and we know the slippery slope too of if you here's 5 legalistic applications you
right.
can have in the next week.
Yeah.
And then there's a measuring stick that God didn't intend. So it's this living, breathing.
The thing is, I could have told a whole bunch of stories of FBCers who are serving.
Mm-hmm.
So just on Saturday, I think it was Saturday or Friday, there was a couple from our church, been coming to FBC for many years. You would all know them. And what were they doing? It was cold Friday, but Saturday. You know, what were they doing? They were ringing a Salvation Army bucket out in front of Walmart. Just serving.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and there's tons of stories that, you know,
Right.
of where people are washing people's feet, you know, in that sense. And so you never want to leave the impression, like Tim Sanford talks about, the bony finger, where you're condemning people, because there is so many examples of that. So for those who have a servant heart, where does God want you to even more? And for others who might not even think about it, well, maybe start thinking about it and asking the Lord, where can I be a slave to someone and serve somebody? Whether it's I tell you what, if we applied these principles and or these examples of servanthood, we would end marriage problems. God comes and calls us to die to ourselves and to live for others. And if the body of Christ around the world, but even in our smaller environment, really took this to heart, and what changes would take place in the world today. It's just not about political campaigns or not that that's wrong and all that other stuff and preaching sermons and any of that stuff. It is, where do you see when no one's looking a need, and you're ministering Christ and his love in that need? It would change the world. It did. Christ did. And he gives us an example to follow.
And it's so backwards to the world. I mean, I don't know if C.S. Lewis said it in Screw Tape Letters or what, but a Christian should be different in the most curious of ways. What is it about? What do you mean you're okay doing this? Like, I remember my dad would take my brothers and I with him to go help. I don't know if it was servant alerts back then or what, to go help an old lady move furniture or something. And I would be like, rolling my eyes. Thanks, Dad. You're dragging me and Jonah to do this or whatever. But then every time I'd watch my dad serving, and then they'd be so shocked that he was, why would you? Why? They were like so grateful and so shocked. And
by the way, I need a small piano moved.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Would you and Jonah want help?
I'll be sick then, but I'll get somebody for you. But anyway, when you serve,
by the way, I'm serious. That's off camera.
Hey, Jonah lives real close by. Yeah, we'll have him do it.
Oh, but I got a baby.
But it's just so cool that is a very effective form of evangelism, not a top down.
Yeah.
Not only evangelism from the top down, but also just building that relationship and being a trustworthy figure before they even discern Jesus behind the scenes. It's just cool how that happens.
I'll tell you one quick story. This was years ago. It was 1991, and we were in a little building here, FBC, the original little building, and we were starting to get crowded, and the elders were talking about, we're going to have to expand, or what are we going to do? And well, we could go to 2 services. We could make use of this building. Let's start with going to 2 services. And there was some grumbling starting going on about, yeah, but we've got this. We're not going to see our friends if we go to the first service, and how are we, and all that stuff. And so that week, I got on the phone to some nursing homes, and I said, do you have anybody, a resident here who doesn't get visited very often? Oh, yeah. there's Fred, so-and-so, and he has no family, and yeah, very lonely. And so I worked that into my sermon. And I said, look, we have a choice to make here. We can either stay small in a holy huddle and high five each other how well we're doing, or we can see needs around us and get beyond our four walls and touch people's lives, which will mean people are going to start coming.
Right.
And I mentioned Fred in the nursing home. No one goes with, well, wouldn't you know, a couple of families heard that message, of course. That next Sunday, they go to that nursing home, they found Fred. And they started a nursing home ministry. This was years ago in the church. But they had that congregation back then had to get outside their thinking about us for and no more. What of self-serving, that we've got a cozy thing. And 34 years later, God, I think, continues to stir this church up and see. That's why we do a follow the star. That's why we do a food share. That's why people are visiting nursing homes and ministering different ways. And I think part of that was a decision the elders made in 1991 to say, we can stay a holy huddle, or we can do what God has called us to do, make a difference in the world by sharing the love of Christ, doing the extraordinary things of grace to share the extraordinary hope that we have in Christ. And that's kind of, I think, where FBC has been for many years. We can always do more, but that's why we have sermons like this and passages to focus on.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah.
Mark, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. Abby, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else to point people towards before we?
There's lots of Christmas events coming up with the season, of course. The seniors are practicing right now. We can hear them.
They sound good.
So the seniors Christmas gathering is tomorrow. There's a youth Christmas party. There's a Keystone Christmas party. And then, of course, we have Christmas Eve services at 11, 5, and 7 with nursery and preschool at 11. And then there's also the Christmas Day potluck, which has been well attended in the past.
Live streaming on the 11 o'clock
Yes.
Christmas Eve service. So FYI on that.
Yeah.
Very good. Thanks, everybody, for being a part of the conversation. Share your thoughts or questions with us at fbcva.org/podcast. We love hearing from you. And remember, sermons aren't just heard, they're lived. Until next week, much love. God bless.